Alright, what's going on, everybody? Sorry for the wind. It's really windy here in the northwest suburbs of Illinois. Today, I've been looking around online for a while. I can't find anybody that's actually doing like a step-by-step of the hub bearings on a Sterling rear axle on a 02 F250 Super Duty. Just to show you guys, this is the F250 Super Duty. I'll be doing the fronts here. There's a lot of videos on the fronts, just because everybody blows their fucking lockers up. So I have some new super wench lockers that I'm gonna put on. I'm not gonna use the factory Warren Ford lockers, the Dana lockers. I just don't like them. Everybody knows how to fix these because they all fucking fail. So I've got better lockers that don't fail. I'm gonna do a step-by-step on how to replace this inner hub bearing. This is technically your axle. I've already put my hands on this. When driving the truck, you can see all the oil. I mean, it is really bad. See it all inside. You can see my brakes all have a real nice shine to it because of all the oil. I just redid the pumpkin. I did all the inner seals, or all the inner bearings. I put in new ring and pinion. So all that stuff's all new now. So now it's just a matter of, I've got to do these stupid hub seals. This bearing is totally shot, as you can see. And you can see on the ground, there's already a puddle of this shit dripping. So, I already did my brakes a while ago, as you can see. So all these bolts will come off easily. Sorry for you guys if you didn't do them recently. They're gonna be a pain in the ass, so I'll be able to blow through these pretty quick. The wheel is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's really not all that hard. It's just a matter of you're gonna pull your wheel off first. After your wheel, it's gonna be your brake caliper, then your brake mounting plate. After your brake mounting plate, then you're gonna pull your rotor off. For all you guys that have these Fords, the perfect measurement for the freaking brake caliper to place it off doesn't really fit anywhere. I noticed if you put a milk crate right here, it sits on the milk crate perfectly. Doesn't stretch or bind the lines at all. So then after you pull the brake rotor off, then you're gonna go ahead, and what I've learned is if you having troubles before trying to get the rotor off, or after getting the rotor off, trying to get this inner hub out, that's why I do this last. It's because when I take all these off, as I beat on this axle shaft, the hub comes free as well. So, but if it doesn't, there's the puller that I'm gonna use. Here's all the tools that you guys are gonna need. It is a 21 millimeter for the lug nuts. It is an 18 millimeter for the hub, for the axle nuts. It is a, God, I'm almost positive it's 15 millimeter for the caliper bolts, for the slide pin bolts. No, it's a 14, guys. So don't use this 15. It's a 14 millimeter for the caliper slide bolts, and then it is as well as an 18 for the caliper mount bolts. I don't need to take any of these bolts out just because I'm not doing the spindle. I'm hoping I don't have to do the spindle. If you guys do have to take the spindle off, these are the bolts to get the spindle off. Other than that, you shouldn't need to touch your brake feed line. You shouldn't need to touch your bleeder. If you guys can't get your caliper off, obviously you know you have to put a pry bar in between here and press this out. Open the cap in the engine compartment. If you don't open the brake reservoir cap, you're going to be applying pressure, and then it's going to have vacuum pressure, which is going to reverse pressure, which is going to push back. so it's going to repinch the brake caliper again, or the brake rotor again. So if you open up the cap in the engine compartment, and then when you pry on this, the pressure doesn't, it's equal both ways, so the caliper won't want to compress back on the rotor again. So it's pretty self-explanatory, guys. I mean, it's very little tools. So back to this, it's a 14 millimeter for the caliper slide pin bolts. It is 21 millimeter for the lug nuts. It is 18 millimeter for the hub, for the axle bolts and the caliper mounting plate bolts. If you guys are gonna do bearings on your car, it's up to you. I don't like to tell people to spend extra money, but buy the best fucking parts you can buy. National bearings, I've never had any bad luck with National bearings. They're great products. You're going to need this part number. Let me make a camera angle for you guys. Good old made in China, which a lot of stuff you're gonna see is made in China just because our steel goes to China and it comes back, so they have to stamp it China. But as you can see, most of it's all here, Michigan, Southfield, Michigan. So other than that, that's that bearing. Your bearing should look like this. Here's the rate. This is a bearing race, and this is the actual bearing assembly. Make sure you have this in. This is all here, and do not get this dirty or anything. This is the, if you guys have an O'Reilly's Auto Parts, this is the puller I'm using. Here's the part number. So, whoa, I almost fucked up my new bearings. Almost. Jesus Christ. Has nothing to do with it. Okay, so back to parts again. Here's the seal. I just use a block of wood to set these in. You really won't hurt it if you use a block of wood and a rubber mallet or a dead blow mallet. Don't use a metal mallet, just because a steel mallet will put dents in this stuff. So there's the seal. Let me show you guys the part number. This came from O'Reilly's, so here's the part number that I have on this, and then here's the back. Oh, good old made in Mexico. Good old Trigan rubber and spring products. So there we go. There's your part number for the seal, for the hub seal. This is the grease I'm using for the bearings, because you do have to grease your bearings. You cannot not grease your bearings. You have to grease them, because you will run them dry until the oil gets to it, so they require you to put grease in. I don't have very much, but I don't need very much. I just need to get them kind of pre-lubricated. And on the seal, you're gonna need some extensions probably. Here's the, again, good old O'Reilly's. Here's the tool you're going to need to pull the inner spindle nut off. So here's the part number for a power torque. Good old chrome Vandurium. Good old Pittsburgh steel. So this is the tool you're going to need. It's 2 3/4 inch. Here's the part number at the top. This is the tool you're going to need to pull the nut off. When you pull the axle when you pull this axle shaft out, there's a nut in there. I'll let you guys know that the foot torque pound, you'll need a torque wrench as well. Make sure your torque wrench goes from 10 to 150 at least foot pounds, because you're going to be at 60 foot pounds when you go to tighten. And then when you do your 60 foot pounds tightening that nut, I'll show you guys. When you tighten that nut, you're going to tighten it down 60 foot pounds, and then you're going to click it back 7 clicks, and then once after your 7 clicks, you're done. Then you can put everything back together. So this is part 1. I'll go show you guys part 2 here in a minute once when I get the wheel and everything off, and I'll show you guys a step through on everything. Right now, for part 1, what you guys won't see is I'm going to be pulling all the lug nuts off, pulling the wheel off, pulling the caliper off, pulling the caliper mounting plate off, and then I'm going to try to get the rotor off. If I get the rotor off, I shouldn't have any problems because the wheel's got some play in it, so I shouldn't have any troubles getting the rotor off. So, and then I'll bring you guys back on once the rotor's off. I'm cutting the parking brakes off this truck altogether. I'm having no parking brake. I just don't need it. I'm not running that heavy of a truck. This is pretty much a show truck, so it's not going to be a weight loaded truck. So I'm cutting the parking brake off, and then after that I am going to remove all the parking brake components, all the inner brake shoes and everything, and then I'm going to show you guys the actual step-by-step live feed of me taking the spindle out, taking the hub off, pulling the gasket out, pulling the bearings out, putting the new bearings in, putting the new gasket on, etc., all the step throughs. So stay tuned, I'll show you guys more. Give me a little bit and I will get you guys the part 2.